Hello there. Welcome back to the Garlic Fries and Baseball Guys podcast. Sam Loveman here, as always, with Joe the Butcher Boy Shasky. This is episode 76. This was an easy one, Shasky. 76. The Giants have 76 wins right now. For the record, we are recording this on Tuesday, September 19th at about 1 in the afternoon. Got to release this episode right away so you have time to listen to it before the Giants face the Diamondbacks tonight. Big series in Arizona for the Giants. We'll get to that in a second. If you're listening to it tomorrow, hopefully this episode doesn't apply anymore, and the Giants will have win number 77. Shasky, speaking of wins the Giants need to get, over the weekend, I put out a little thread on Twitter, and no one ripped me for it, so I clearly wasn't very good. I said the Giants need to get 84 wins if they want to get that sixth spot in the wild card or in the playoffs, which means they need to go 8-4 in these final 12. And they got to sweep Arizona. Like, that's basically where they are at right now. If they take one against Arizona, though, they will have the tiebreaker over the Diamondbacks, the Marlins, the Reds, and those three teams. And which means that if somehow all four of those teams end up with the exact same record at the end of the year, the Giants would get the sixth spot. So something to look forward to and be excited about if you are still in the whole mode of the Giants can make a playoff run. It's kind of hard to really feel like they have a run, though, and I want to talk about this past weekend in Colorado, Shasky, because this felt like one of the all-time blown chances the Giants have had in terms of a playoff chase and just falling flat on their face at the worst time in Colorado. I don't know how much of this weekend's games that you watch, but the Giants, they basically needed to take 3 of 4 in Colorado this weekend, and they lost 3 of 4 and probably should have been swept, if we're being honest.
Well, they weren't swept, which was a nice win on Sunday, but it was a deflating series. Like, there's no other way around it. And, it was, it's hard to face the reality of where they're at currently. And I know that we've been hanging with this playoffs. And I understand that. Again, the whole time, I understand the merit, and I understand anyone who's excited with the playoffs. I just look big picture, and it's like, how can you take a team seriously that's fighting for a playoff spot and loses to that Colorado team?
And especially the way that they lost, too. So I don't know how much of Friday night's game that you saw. So for me personally, I got home.
A two-hitter with your season on the line?
Oh, it would have been so much funnier, though, too, if things had kind of bounced a different way. So I woke up from a nap, like a late nap. I was conked out for like 3-4 hours on Friday evening. Woke up in like the 7th inning. I saw the Giants were winning 1-0. Okay, that's cool. But they're winning without a hit in Coors Field, 1-0. Okay, I absolutely have to get the TV on right now because this is going to be the funniest win ever. Getting no hit, but winning in Colorado. Sign me up for that. Instead, Shasky, that Friday night loss, they had an 85% chance to win that game going into the top of the 9th inning. And then, of course, as it usually always does when things fall apart, it started off with a Charlie Blackmon at bat, which that guy, he is one of the all-time Giants killers, and I honestly respect him for it. The way that game ended, he gets on, Chris Bryant grounds out, Nolan Jones walks, then Elhurius Montero singles to Mike Yastrzemski in left. Great throw by Yaz. The throw beats Blackmon, but bounces off his leg, skitters away, and the Rockies win on a walk-off that way. Like, that felt like one of the worst losses since the Ryan Spilborghs game way back in 2009. Like, at first I was kind of like laughing at how comical that loss was, but then I started thinking about, it's like, oh, that's going to be a loss that if the Giants miss the playoffs by a game or two, we're going to be circling that one as being like, that was an all-time Coors Field loss right there.
And defense played a factor. And, they told me that they were going to improve the defense. Last year it was bad. No, it wasn't. They told me they were going to improve the hitting. It hasn't been improved. Like, again, we could pick all the different metrics of how to quantify success or getting better as an organization. They've fallen flat. Poor Logan Webb. That was my thing from Friday night. I mean, this guy, he's living the Matt Cain life all over again. It's like the multiverse. Am I wrong?
No, exactly. They're the pointing Spider-Man at each other. Like, yeah, he's going to rip his mask off. It's going to be Matt Cain underneath.
And honestly, he's a better man than me for not blowing his top multiple times. Just in general, frustration. Like, forget at someone, just being frustrated. Like, I feel for him. I legitimately feel for him. That's about as good of a game as I've seen pitched at Colorado since when?
It's been a while since we've had. I mean, would it be too dramatic to go back to Barry Zito's shutout in 2012? Like that's probably going back. We've probably had better, pretty good pitching performances at Coors Field since then. But here's the thing, you so rarely, the Giants' success at Coors Field's been so odd just to begin with. And then you've been getting good pitching performances at Coors Field too lately. And just all that goodwill just seemed to have been extinguished. You got to know Coors Field, no matter what it will giveth, at some point it is going to take it away. And there is nothing that should shudder Giants fans more than a 4-game series in late September at Coors Field. So it was just, this was such a deflating weekend though. Last week, the Giants had a really good opportunity to really kind of stack some wins. They had a 10-game stretch with the Rockies, Guardians, and Rockies. And for the most part, they got off to a great start there. They got off to that 5-1 start in those first games. They really just needed to, at worst, split. Best case scenario, take 3 of 4 from the Rockies and Colorado, and they would have been in the thick of it going into this Arizona series. But now, again, I say that 84 wins is that magic number. I go 8-4 in these final 12. You got these 2 in Arizona tonight. You basically have to sweep these, because if you take only 1, then you got to go 7-3 against the Dodgers and Padres in the final 10. And
you're going up against Zach Gallen and Merrill Kelly. Like, think about the juxtaposition between, we don't know who's starting for the Giants with the season on the line.
They haven't announced a starter yet, actually, because we mentioned on the show this morning.
A starter TBD versus, hey, Zach Gallen, Cy Young Award candidate year in, year out.
I do have some good news. Alex Cobb has been announced as the starter for tonight. And then Logan Webb will go tomorrow against Merrill Kelly. So Giants are going best on best with the rotation here. So they're at least doing that. Gallen and Cobb, they're kind of the only 2, normal pitchers they have going in this rotation right now. We'll get to that more in a second. But yeah, it's at the point where you basically have to sweep these 2 games, because you don't know what the Dodgers and Padres are going to be bringing to the table over the next week and a half. The Dodgers, they're locked in with the NL West Division title. They're locked into that number 2 seed. So how much they'll try is up for debate. Hopefully they just will kind of punt on those games. I think they should. The Padres, they're struggling this year. They're a mess of a team. They seem to figure it out, though, when the Giants are on the field. The Giants have given themselves basically no margin for error here over these last 12 games. And this is a team that leads the league in errors. And I know that's not quite the same error, but at the same time, I feel like it's kind of representative. Like, a team that really cannot afford to make mistakes has shown over and over again that they're not good at avoiding those mistakes.
I mean, who's playing great ball right now? Mike Yastrzemski?
Your guy, Mike Yastrzemski. Luis Matos has been pretty good.
No, you know what? You're right. Matos has been a lot better. He's seen the ball better, a couple multi-hit games. I feel like he's playing good defensively. I did not like how much Kruko was ripping him for missing the cut the other night. That bugged me.
That does. I mean, and that's the kind of thing, like, if you want to rip a guy for missing fundamental stuff like that, I get that. But at the same time, and this is kind of an issue I have here down the stretch, and you saw it again with Doval a bit on Friday night, and again on Sunday, I'll get to in a second. What's going on with the coaching with this team right now? Like, it's the end of September, and Matos isn't sure where he's supposed to throw the ball. Like, at what point is the coaching staff supposed to be working with these guys and developing these guys? I said last week, Shasky, when we were talking about the rookies, you've kind of thought they've stalled out. I still blame the coaching staff for that. This is a coaching staff. You have, there's more coaches on the Giants staff than I think there are employees at 95.7 The Game. And yet no one can teach these guys, hey, make sure you're throwing the ball to this guy in this situation. Hey, Camilo, when there's the ball coming home from left field, make sure you're standing over here and not over there. It's simple things like that. Or it's just like these younger players, you're not coaching them up enough, and you're seeing the development stall out. And now you're saying, like, when was the last time we said, thank God for Patrick Bailey? It's been at least a couple weeks since we've said that.
The other day they went with Blake Sable, and I know you got to play certain matchups, but it's like, what are we doing? Like, I need my defense in there. I need a guy who knows how to man this staff right now. We can't be blowing any games. Sam,
it's frustrating.
I'm having a hard time.
I don't blame you. And a moment that kind of got me on Sunday. So I turned the game on. I watch them build that 9-0 lead. Cool. I'm going to turn the Niner game on because clearly these guys got this wrapped up. I checked the Giants score later. It's like, why haven't I gotten the final, the game over notification yet? Shouldn't that be happening? I checked the score. They won 11-10, which my first thought is, okay, classic Coors Field game. And then I watched that 9th inning. Shasky, they had 2 outs. They're up 11-8. Chris Bryant hits a little dribbler down the first base
The
line.
dribbler that Camilo Doval has to make a play on.
He does have to make a play on that. It was his 30th pitch of the inning, and Doval, he flubs it. Flubs it. And I worry about Doval right now. I think he's been vastly, I don't know if vastly
100% agree. He's gassed.
He is gassed. But that situation, if you're Gabe Kapler, you talk about putting guys in the best position to succeed. Doval had a chance to end that game. He flubbed it. He's 30 pitches deep. He's pitched a lot already this year. Why aren't you taking him out? I get you want to show faith in him. That is a situation you got to take a guy out on, especially a young guy like Doval, who we know can get rattled sometimes when things really start to get intense. And he's only 25 years old. The guy's still got a ways to go before he hits kind of the upper echelon that I think we all see him hitting at some point. So I'm I'm willing to kind of give Doval more of a leash on these kind of mistakes.
I'm not mad at Doval. He's been overused.
But at the same time, like Kapler, you got to take him out there. And these are the bullpen decisions that luckily, again, he gives up a double the next at bat. Now it's a 1-run game. Taylor Rogers has to come in and finish things up. Luckily he did. But that's what it takes. If that game had gone south and the Giants got swept there, I mean, you just nuked your season because you can't give a quick enough hook there. And that what kind of brings me to my Doval concerns right now, Shasky. And his innings pitched aren't that huge. And since August 1st, he's only thrown 15 innings. But he's really been struggling in that time. A 4.80 ERA in that time. Hitters are hitting 267 off them, which is pretty good. A 3.49 BABIP. So a little bit of tough luck here and there.
Mm-hmm.
What really concerns me about Camilo Doval is not so much the innings pitched, because I think for the most part, the Giants have been pretty good at limiting innings pitched for relievers up until the last 3-4 weeks. But Doval was kind of an exception in that he was throwing a lot more pitches. So far this season, Shasky, he's 17th in the league in pitches thrown amongst relievers. He's not even in the top 30, though, of relievers innings pitched, though. So while he may not have a ton of innings thrown, comparatively speaking, he's throwing the ball a lot during these innings. And that's kind of the antithesis of what you're seeing with a lot of these other relievers, where guys like, Tyler Rogers, he's in the top, tier of innings pitched among relievers, but he's not one of the league leaders in pitches thrown this year because he's a lot more efficient.
Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah.
Wouldn't you agree that toward the last month, it feels like he's reverting back to old Camilo, where he doesn't trust certain pitches in certain situations and becomes very one pitch dependent and predictable?
I would think so. Yeah, it does kind of look like he's getting into that situation. And I think with that, when he doesn't have all of his pitches, he starts doubting himself there.
Yes.
He starts to get a little wild.
Good call.
I talked about that 9th inning on Sunday. He gave up that dribbler to Bryant that he reached. He should have been taken out. A few batters earlier, he clonked a guy on the side of the head.
I know. Just hit him.
He's just showing all sorts of these like red flags right now. And it's like, this is one of the few good things you have going for your team right now, for your future. And you're just driving him into the ground. Another guy who I'm really kind of concerned about is Ryan Walker. It seems like every time he's coming out right now to the mound, something bad is happening. This is a guy who's thrown a lot more innings than he's ever thrown in his career. He's doing it in weird roles that he's never really done ever.
And hasn't embraced since day one.
I think yes and no. He was against the opener at first. I think when he started doing well at it, he kind of talked about this when he came on the pod. He kind of started to embrace a little bit more. The problem with Ryan Walker is that he's a rookie, and this is something he said. I'm a rookie. I kind of don't really have much choice to argue at these things. And God bless him. The dude, he's got that the spirit that you want in a Giants player. He embraced the role as best as he could. I truly see Ryan Walker as being a 7th or 8th inning guy someday.
Okay.
This guy's got, I think, good stuff and great deception with that crossfire delivery. Stop using him in the beginning and middle of the games.
Yeah.
He's another guy where it's just the numbers aren't as bad. He's got a 4.29 BABIP since August 1st. So he's been kind of screwed by some bad luck as well. But at the same time, like, put him in a role that's better set for him.
Yeah.
I hear the rest of the year and going into next year, you're putting him in a bad situation. So all this comes down to is that you got a team that's fighting still for a playoff spot, could still make the playoffs. And you got fans wondering whether or not you should make the playoffs or not. Shasky, I'll be in this. I really want the Giants to still make the playoffs, not just because I'm a fan and I want to see my team succeed, which I do, contrary to popular belief.
I do.
But I do. But no, the reason I want to see the Giants make the playoffs is I really want to make a mockery of that 6th spot of in the MLB playoffs. I really don't like the fact that they expanded the playoffs like they did. It felt like a cheap money grab, and I feel like the Giants getting that 6th spot, and maybe they even win a playoff series, would just be like, you see, this is why you don't expand the playoffs just for a cheap money grab.
Interesting. look, we can have a bigger philosophical Major League Baseball conversation about diluting for that last playoff spot. Just to me, my overall, if we're going to have a bigger MLB conversation and if the Giants are wrapped in there for about a month and a half, we feel like we're all face planting to the finish line, right?
Yeah.
Like baseball's divisions have been pretty wrapped up. Is there any division in baseball that's up for grabs right now?
AL West has 3 teams within a game of each other: the Mariners, Astros, and Rangers. That could be
Which
a
would have
legitimate.
been the same way had we ended the season on August 31st, correct? Pretty close.
But it'll be interesting. I mean, that's gonna be a fun one to see.
But wouldn't you agree with football and everything going on right now? Does feel like this last month of baseball, it gets kind of lost in the shuffle.
I mean, that's true. I mean, I always remember back in 2010 reading an article about how, Major League Baseball season's over. Yankees, I guess, are the World Series champions because football's starting. This isn't just a now thing. 13 years ago, people had this, well, football's here, baseball's irrelevant attitude. I mean, the thing is, if the only solution there is less MLB games, and the entire league has just walked out of the room the minute you just said that.
No. Apparently, from David Sampson, who does this for a living, the only team that was fighting against this for many, many years was the San Francisco Giants. Why? Because of their huge season ticket fan base. I'd love to get him on the podcast during the offseason to really talk about these kinds of things.
Actually, yeah, he would kind of be fun to get in there too. So
I think we can do a really good show with him.
That would be good. Actually, I'll get on that. Doing some on-air producing right there.
Yeah, sorry.
So
as I pound my glove.
No, they are face planting at the end, and it does feel like it's so hard to like. I think there's some argument to be made that like, why do you want to see this team make the playoffs so they're just going to get swept out of it? Again, this is where the whole anything could happen thing really pops up in baseball. And Shasky, it's not unrealistic to really kind of dream that way. If the Giants sneak in, they would be going to Milwaukee. They won 3 of 4 in Milwaukee when they went there earlier this year. They were 5-2 against the Brewers this season. They've done pretty well against the Brewers the last couple of years. It's not that hard to imagine, Logan Webb, Alex Cobb going out those first 2 games, and then maybe they bullpen that third game. And then you got a division series that'll be against the Dodgers, a Dodgers team that's kind of scuffling right now and will be coming off a 5-day layoff. Shasky, did you know that in the history of the wild card era, 16 teams have had at least 5 days off during the playoffs? Wow. Those teams are 7-9 in the ensuing playoff series. Since 2005, 11 teams have had that 5-day layoff. Those 2 teams are 2-9 in those ensuing playoff series. Bye weeks in baseball do not work. All right, which is another reason why I don't understand why they expanded the playoffs like they did to include the bye week. When, again, you're going to put players on ice before the most important games of the year. Ask Will Clark what that was like. Remember when he had to sit on ice for 10 days in the 89 Worlds, before the 89 World Series? Or ask Justin Verlander about the 2012 World Series. Yes. All-time teams with long layoffs in the playoffs, all time when a team faces another team that had more days off than the other, the team with more days off went 42-46 in those playoff series. That's a .436 winning percentage. Last year, you had the Braves and Dodgers, 200-win teams. They got knocked out in the National League Division Series. The Astros barely got by, and so did the Yankees. And those were all, teams that had the bye. So if the Giants could sneak through that first round, maybe they get a cold Dodgers team, you start to see how this can maybe kind of snowball into a weird playoff run. I don't think that's going to happen though, because I just everyone all excited about it. But at the same time, it starts with these 2 games in Arizona. It really does. You got Cobb, you got Webb, you got as good of a chance as you could possibly get to go into this weekend against the Dodgers in as good of a situation as you can. It's on the Giants to execute. And at the end of the day, this is basically a long-winded way of saying that through all these struggles, through all this face planning, somehow the Giants still control their own destiny.
They do, which is almost miraculous.
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost miraculous, but unlikely. Where do you fall down on all the, you got to make the playoffs for it to be a successful season? We've seen minor bits of success, but overall, I'm left very disappointed. Like, even if they make the playoffs, let's say they lose in a 3-game series, you lose 2 games, you're done. Boom, season's over. Is that success?
No, and this is where I kind of rail against the diluting of the playoffs, because it does kind of make making the playoffs a little bit less important.
Right?
Like, I'll always remember the thing that's kind of popping in my head. I remember when I was back covering the Sharks after their Stanley Cup run. It was like March. They clinched the playoff spot I'm in the locker room after the game, and I asked Martin Jones, who's the goalie at the time, hey, you guys clinched a playoff spot tonight. How do you feel about that? He's like, oh, I didn't even realize it. Thanks for letting me know. Because in hockey, like half the league makes the playoffs, so you don't care. Like you have so many teams making the playoffs now that you get the 60. You don't like whoop-de-doo, you're in. It's like if you're in the play-in tournament in the NBA. Yeah, you're in, but what's that really doing for you?
Yeah.
I think it puts the Giants in a really unfair position because this is a team that, for all intents and purposes, should be focusing on playing their young players right now and getting those guys more at-bats before going in the next season. But instead, they're kind of, almost conscripted into this playoff chase that they really should not be in because Major League Baseball expanded the field. And so they're trying to get this playoff spot that, competitively speaking, you have to want to go for, even though it might not be in their best interest. It's a weird situation. It really is.
That's true. I think you're spot on that. I don't know, man. I've had a really tough time this year. I don't mean to be Debbie Downer. It's just been very difficult for me, trying to follow this team. And I feel very conflicted on so many fronts. I want them to be a special, great organization. And they just feel so far away. And yet at the same time, I also want to grasp at any kind of team success because I don't want to be some hater of my team. I love my team. I want them to go to the playoffs. Like, these are few and far between. They went to the playoffs 3 times when they won the World Series, the 1 time in 2016 when they lost, 2 times in the early 2000s, if you will, and then in 2000, 3 times, I guess. Like, less than 10 times in 25 years. So for me to sit here and like scoff at the playoffs feels like I'm being spoiled. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree with you there. And it should be like, and this is where my frustration comes in with the higher ups, is that if they can make the playoffs this year and they'll champion as a success, but then they'll miss the playoffs next year. But it's like, well, hey, we made it in 2023.
Yeah.
The expectation should not be, well, hey, we made the playoffs that one time. Chess, you said what, 10 times in the last however many years?
Give or take. So you've got the 4 times during Bochy's run, the 5th time when they made it in 2021, and then 2000, 2002, and 2003.
And 97. So in my lifetime, that's what, 9-10 times they've been to the playoffs?
And then 98 was a 1-game playoff.
Yeah. The Dodgers have done that 10 of the last 11 years. And we're talking about how, 10 times in the last 30 years, they've done great. Like, really, these are the expectations.
That's a good counter.
Like, things need to change.
But let me play the devil's advocate to the Dodgers thing. And I'm not here to like that's our rival. And I get it. We measure ourselves up to them. How many times have the Rockies, Padres, and Diamondbacks made the playoffs in the last 25 years? If I added them all up, I think the Giants have done it more than all 3 of those teams combined.
Except the thing is, if you look at the NL West hierarchy right now, like the Dodgers are up here.
Yeah.
And then those 3 teams are down here. If I were to, this hand is the Giants. Am I more up here or am I more down here? Like which
probably
part am I closer to?
But you do have 3 titles. So like, you see what I'm saying? I'm so conflicted.
I am too. But again, it's the way you unconflict yourself is that this regime did not win these championships.
That's true.
They don't get the goodwill that comes with it.
That's a good way of putting it, Sam.